You guys, we're back this week. I want to thank you so much for this 13-week run. I want to thank CAN TV for giving us a platform, a chance to express not only our views of what's going on in Woodlawn, but to advocate a better lifestyle in Woodlawn. And I'm so blessed and honored to have Mattie Butler, who is a 40-year-old veteran of advocacy in the Woodlawn area. Thank you so much for taking time out. I so appreciate this. You just don't know. I talked about it last week, and I've been speaking on this for the last 13 weeks about the work that you've done, and it's phenomenal. And I know it cost you a lot. It cost a lot of your time and your wear and tear and brokenheartedness to see the community go from one point to the next.
Yes.
You've lived in the Woodlawn area how long?
Since 1963.
1963. So you were in the heyday when the migration came into the area?
No, actually, I was in the day when it was turning over to all black.
Okay.
When the white flight.
With white flight.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit yesterday, and I'll just dab on this a little bit. What got you into wanting to be an advocate for Woodlawn? I'm speaking in reference to there was rampant arson going on in the area. Can you tell us just a little bit of how you decided to not take one more minute of what was going on in the neighborhood?
Well, the decision for me not to take one more minute came when 13 children and 2 adults got burned in a house 2 doors from mine on the block that I lived on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it came close enough to put my own family in jeopardy for me to take notice and say, what's going on? What's happening?
So during that time, people were, if they wanted to move away, they were torching Woodlawn for the insurance money or whatever?
They were milking in the part of Woodlawn that I live in, which is East Woodlawn. There were large buildings, 6 flats, 12 flats, 24 flats, 4 flats. Very few single-family homes, and the rest were multi-family and bi-levels, tri-levels. And those buildings were owned by people who had moved to the suburbs and left in the white flight. And they cut their properties up and milked them. And so when the properties became so milked that it became impossible for them to make any more money off of it because it was in housing court, they would have the buildings torched because there was a 1975 law that said, insurance law, that said if the roof and the back porch fell in a building, they would get paid 100% of the replacement cost of that building.
Wow.
Rather than enough just to bring it back to par.
Wow.
So, and 99.9% of the units in our building that were that was set afire was arson set.
Wow.
Consequently, we have large places of open land.
I see the lots.
Eastern part of Woodlawn, and that is why.
And the eastern part is the richer part because you're right there with all the lake, the lagoons, the big. That's where the World's Fair was positioned.
That's right. Walking distance of the World's Fair position.
Walking distance.
Walking distance.
Okay.
And it's a phenomenal place because now we're going to be walking distance of the library. The Obama Library. Okay,
talk a little bit about this presidential library coming in and how you think it will affect the Woodlawn residents. Now, where this library is being positioned is, what, a block, 2 blocks from you?
About a block and a half from me and across the street from the Hyde Park High School.
Okay. All right. And as they're beginning to, now that they've designated where it's going to be, and they're beginning to break ground on this, and how will this affect the neighborhood? How will this improve the neighborhood?
Well,
can we talk a little bit about that?
It's already affecting the neighborhood. Even the thought that it was coming to the south side, and they didn't even know if it was coming to Woodlawn or Washington Park. Speculators start coming into the area. And so we've been... the marketplace has already taken its stand about what it's going to do for the area.
Okay, so now this land is like gold.
It's going to be like gold, yeah.
And then you got the black gold. All right. So and you've got this Jackson Park, the Highlands, further south and east, and then you've got the great big park district. What do you got? The golf club.
Right.
So all of this will tie in.
Tennis courts,
golf course.
We got the YMCA sitting across from it, and we've got High Park High School. Right.
So now property values are back to possibly originally before the white flight now.
It's far beyond the white flight time because of the period of time and what it was in.
And what it's worth.
Yeah. So it's gone back now to where it was before the bottom fell out
Okay.
of the market in 2008.
So the families who have stayed and endured through the poverty and the arson and the crime and or the gangs and or the drug era of the 70s and 80s, those who are sitting on property right now, they're sitting on something worth
A gold mine.
It's
and
another
they
gold
need to
mine.
hold on.
Okay, and they need to hold on. Now, this is key. This is why I'm so excited about you being here. I was at the University Church on 57th and University, and the lady who's one of the directors there, I told her I needed to change position of where we were having an event, and I told her that I didn't want you to try to climb up those stairs.
Right.
And she said to me, she said, "Mattie Butler? You mean Mattie Butler from way back?" She goes, "She's the only one left." She's one of the true fighters, the true advocates of not only Woodlawn but people's rights. You don't really understand who Mattie. Girl, you can have any space you want. And I was like, oh my God, people know the work you did. You're the only one left.
Yeah, that makes me blush.
Yo.
That makes me blush because we've got some younger people that's coming along who's doing some crucial work. And we've got some people in the community who have been there for a long time silently doing work and haven't had the notoriety that perhaps I've had just because I've been in the forefront or shelved in the forefront. I haven't been in the forefront all the time because I know, because I have some experience with that entertainment world, that sometimes you need to take a back seat. And you need to watch what's going on before you strike. And so I've learned from all of my adventures in my life's work.
I tell you what, for somebody under 5 feet tall and 120 pounds soaking wet, I just want you to know that you have been a giant. You've been an advocate. And I know that there have been threats and a bunch of other things that have come upon you and that you stood tall. And that one of your big adversaries before he passed did say that you were one formidable foe. That and it shook your hand and gave you a grant because you were really fighting for people who did not have a voice. Right. And I want to talk a little bit about the mentality of the people who are in the neighborhood. Now, we had a caller last week, and I really do apologize not only to CAN TV, but to the viewers. I had a caller last week that I became just crazy over because, you know, it was like life had no value. If you had problems or you had drug addiction or you were poor or you were mentally imbalanced, then, you know, you had no value. You know, we're paying for you and you get stuff and everybody else has to wait in line. And that tore my heart out my chest because I'm looking at people who really don't even know they're sick. Talk a little bit about what got us in this position. What is it?
Well, let me just say that I have been looking at this from the eyes of an African American slave of descendant slaves of these United States for the last 73 years.
Wow, Mattie.
And let me say that I think that we're in the throes of genocide, internal and external. And when I say that we're in the throes of genocide now for our people, we've got young men and women ages 12 to 24 with guns in their hands shooting each other. And then we've got the criminal justice system sending them to prison for their lifetime. And then we've got, you can buy stock on the open market for privatized jails because they don't have enough public jails to put them in.
Wait a
Now, the
minute.
jailhouse is the only place that I know of where slavery is still okay.
Mm.
And so it sounds like slavery is alive and kicking.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the midst of it. And as a matter of fact, we are partaking of it and a willing advocate for it in some ways. And it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because now slavery is not projected by the overtly by the people that used to keep us enslaved and thought that we were just 3/5 of a human and 2/5 of us was animals, and that's how they kept us where we were in our place. Slavery now became a public policy.
Mm.
And so by policy we are enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
By policy then we were enslaved, but it was a more overt. Now this is a covert policy.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, it's a public policy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our kids are not manufacturing guns.
I bought that. Yes.
They're not manufacturing guns.
Yes.
And when you put a gun in a kid's hand, and it's a kid, it's a child, they're going to play. They're going to play with it, and that's the most dangerous game that they can play is killing one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it becomes an actuality. And all of a sudden it's not a game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that you've taken a life that you can't bring back.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're in jail for the rest of your life that you can't have back.
Mm-hmm. That people can go to the stock exchange and invest in.
And just
And
right.
get their return.
And I can go right now today
Mm-hmm.
and buy some stock
Mm-hmm.
in the jailhouses.
Mm-hmm.
And you could too if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are once again a commodity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That means that they're playing this whole role out that we're less than human beings.
Mm.
The stock market, come on, be for real now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we are not, once more time a commodity. We've been on the stock market. We were on the stock market when we were there as slaves.
On the block.
On the block.
On the selling block.
On the selling block.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're on the selling block again.
Mm-hmm.
But this time it's clouded, shrouded under the criminal justice initiative.
People, how do we, what do we say, what do we do? How do we come together, or how do we change this, Mattie? What do we do? How do we help this? Because it took centuries to get it to this point. What do we do? What do we do?
Well, one of the things that we got to do is talk to our legislators and have them change these stupid laws that's legislating us into slavery. And the other thing that we got to do is to talk to our children and get them to understand that a people who that don't know the history is going to repeat it, and we're in the middle of repeating our history right now. And they need to know how we're doing that. And they need to know how not to do that. So we've got to understand that we also are dealing with young people who are in this community now who are not the people who were Vietnam veterans era folks.
Okay.
These children are the children of people who were on drugs, heavy drugs, crack, you have it.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of them.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have been totally lost out here and in the system.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of them have been, put on their knees because they don't know what's wrong with them. You give them a piece of chocolate and they're bouncing off the walls.
Or caffeine, right?
Or
chemicals that are in the Cheetos
Anything
and the
like
other.
that.
I'm going to take a just quick break and speak with this caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, caller, you're on the air.
Yes? Yes? Do you want to know what we can do as black people in America?
Yes. Please say.
Yes. Yes, we have to take back, from the white man what he has taken from us. That's everything.
And how do you suggest we do that, sir?
The black people in America and the United States need...
I think we've lost that caller.
No, he's echoing.
Hello?
You're here. You got to turn your set down.
Hello?
Yeah, turn your television down, sir. You're
My TV is down. I think I'm the other caller now.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, caller. We can hear you very well.
Good evening, ladies. How you doing?
Fine,
Good
thank
evening,
you.
Great. I heard a question that you were speaking, and I have a question to ask you.
Okay.
You know, yes, there is such of a thing where the penal system is you can buy stock, and you correctly, you really can. The question that I want to ask you, do you think it's right to buy into stock such as that? I mean, do you say, no, I don't want to put no stock into that practice right there and have moral issues? Say, well, you know, I'm help contributing to that by buying stock like that? Or do you know, some people will say, well, you're not making people go there. But we know there are ways of people getting there that probably don't have no reason they are not. But the question is, should you back stock into the penal system?
I don't think you should invest into anybody being imprisoned or for anybody being killed or
Hold on,
the
let me
same
get
thing
out
with the
there.
guns. I mean, you can
Your
invest in.
response.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me get out there so I can hear your response. And thanks for taking the call.
Bless your heart. Thank you. That's a good point.
So
Should
no. We
Okay.
should not invest in slavery. And if we're investing in stocks or in the jailhouse, we're saying it's all right. We don't mind that black folks are more in prison than any other folk in the system. And so once again, we're on the chopping block or the buying stock of slaves.
Right, no different than when
No different
in
than
Africa when we
sold.
were sold into slavery for whatever trinkets or whatever, they decided to trade the other tribes or people and send them over here for slavery. So no, I agree with you, Mattie. I don't think you should invest
That's right.
in somebody
The name of the
else's
game-
misery.
The name of the game is the same. The name may have changed, but the game is the same. And that is, we are investing in ourselves being slaves. That's crazy.
Okay, some folks might say you're investing people buying drugs in the neighborhood and getting strung out and stuff like that. That's investing in people's misery. So why do people do it? It's not the same though, right?
I don't see, I don't think you can buy stock on what.
Which you can buy on the street.
Right.
You're right. We'll take one more caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. You're on the air.
Okay, listen, this is my question now. We've heard once before that, like being in slavery before, but when we go to talk about being in slavery, we were put in slavery or punished because of the way we were performing originally. It was not because of something we necessarily chose to do, but we were punished by the Creator. That's why we was in this slavery. But now here it is in these very days, we're being put back in slavery based on something that we are doing. So that means the leading force, the leadership is doing something definitely incorrect that is steadily causing us to be punished. So
Well, okay, thank you for that point, sir. I'm going to take one more call, now let Mattie close out. To your point, I don't think the Creator punished us to bring us here and to have us raped and to have families separated. I don't believe that's what God is about, but I take your point. The punishment is the fact that, somebody in Africa sold us to somebody to come here and be a workforce. Our last caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
Yes, ma'am. Just a comment, and I want to also ask you a question. My comment is that we are under a delusion that we were slaves. We were never slaves. We were in bondage. There's a difference between when you have captivated someone and bound them or bond them into captivity, as opposed to the white race that were born into slavery. The word slave is rooted from the word Slav, S-L-A-V. So we were never slaves. We were in bondage. And my my question I wanted to ask both of you ladies, can you give us, from your knowledge and wisdom, like a step program what do we need to do as a community or as a race to move from one point to another point? You know, like they say, like a 7-step program. So
Okay.
can you ladies elaborate and take?
Yes, I'm gonna let Mattie take that, and we're running out of time. So he's asking for some kind of system that might work. And if you were to say from A to B to C to D, what is it that you know? First is education. I know that's
The first one is we got to have a historical perspective of where we are and understand where we've been, so that we won't return there again. And we've got to pass that along to our children who don't have an inkling about what their history is, and that's why they're doing the stupid stuff that they're doing now. The second thing is that we've got to come together as people.
yes,
Collective effort.
Yes.
We've got to
Yes.
do a collective effort. And we've got to agree to disagree, but agree to come together and get things done. And the third thing is that we've got to understand and believe and know that our God is an awesome God. And he does not leave us without an understanding. And we've got to first deal with that understanding. Deal with our people like we love them and that they love us.
no matter what.
Unconditionally, like
Yes.
he loves us.
Yes, yes,
Unconditionally.
yes.
And they say, well, Mattie Butler, how are you doing all of this stuff? Because when I wake up every morning and see that the thing is still there, my work ain't done. And I want to be able to pass on the mantle to somebody else in the neighborhood, somebody younger, that will take it and carry it on to fruition. And so all of you out there who are in the communities, get busy, get work in your community, get busy dealing with your young people right now.
Listen to him.
And give them a voice.
Yes.
And let
Yes.
them speak to you.
Yes.
Truth. Let them speak power to truth.
Yes. I want to say I met Mattie Butler 37 years ago, and you have been a force. You put your life into this. You put your heart into this. There have been a lot of people that you helped that didn't even know that you was somewhere walking a table demanding that the person had the right to live in that neighborhood and that person had the right to be treated as a person. You had to fight when buildings that could house 100 people were torn down so that somebody could have a football field. You fought against people who died and they went to church faithfully and believed in God, and they turned their deeds over to the church to be handled. Let me tell you now, you got to really understand this has not been an easy fight for you, and we're better because of you. And I thank God for you. And I want to thank CAN TV for giving us a platform for these last 13 weeks. We're going to take a break, and we're going to work on the neighborhood. And I want to thank you for all the people you fed with the food pantries.
Thank you.
My son was 7 years old, passing out boxes, trying to lug to older people's cars who did not have food to eat. I want to thank you for standing up, not taking money from sources that would have tried to own you to be quiet so that they could quietly do things. You know, you're very careful for your funding and what you do. A woman of integrity. And your legacy is not just being exposed here today on CAN TV. There are people who are better and have a better life and are better people because you decided to stand up. You know, I get so tickled at the less than 5 feet tall, but mighty God works in mysterious ways. And you've given your life and your whole family. There are other people in your family, we don't even need to mention, that have been on that front line to make sure that people less fortunate had it and didn't have to, you know. And there are people who will come to you and save my mama's building, or save this, or I don't have lights, I don't have gas. A lot of people who are today better because you stood up. So I want to thank you. And if you want to know a living legend, you just met one. I want to thank CAN TV for having us. I want to thank Mattie Butler for taking out time. And we are the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub. And Mattie is the executive director of the Weekend organization, along with Stop and some other organizations who are here trying to put this hub together to not only help our young people, but to make life better for those in Woodlawn. If you got property in Woodlawn, hold on to it. Don't sell out. You're sitting on a gold mine. And with that, I'm getting that wrap-up sign, so I'm going to wrap it up for 13 weeks. And thank God that we had a platform. Thank you, CAN TV.
Thank
You're
you.
the absolute best. Mattie Butler, none other.
Thank you.
Thank you, baby.
Okay.